welcome back to the Exorcist Bestiary. That's my impression of the fire truck in the distance. It's a fire truck siren, but see, you think, wow, that must be an easy impression to do. No, because it's not a fire truck sound. It's a fire truck in the distance sound. So how do you do the impression and also make it sound like it's far away?
He's getting lots of clips for the ending.
There's a fire truck outside. And it sounds like that. Welcome back to the Exorcist Bestiary, everybody. I'm your host, Amity. This is Jamin. This is Tasha. You know everybody already. This is your premiere podcast on all things spiritual deliverance, exorcism, Holy Spirit, all that jazz. You know the drill by now. Today's topic is one we already did in a previous episode.
Come on, now they all turned it off.
No, it's going to be different somehow.
All right.
Womp womp, your turn.
We're back in the spare room, I forgot to mention, at 1208 Greenwood Church. This is our worship space here, one of a couple worship spaces here. We're back here because we are recording this episode right after the last one, which is why I have a bizarre energy, because the last episode freaked me out a lot. So now you get this version of Amity.
Just making fire truck noises. Okay, so yeah, we are rehashing. We already did an episode on truth.
Well, we kind of did an episode on lies.
Well, yeah. Okay,
and then there was a little bit of truth tied into the end. We were talking in the previous episode that we're referencing from a couple months ago. It was about the lies that demons tell and the power that they hold in those lies. And then we talked about how replacing those lies with truth of the Spirit is really important. But this episode is not as much going to be covering the lies aspect, and it's just going to be emphasizing, like, what is the truth of the Spirit? Right?
Yeah. Yes, that's good. Yeah. See, it's different. It's different.
Kind of.
Yes, Jamin.
That's one of my favorite commercials right now is the Starry commercials, which is clearly Sierra Mist.
Oh, like the rebranding?
Yeah, but their slogan for Starry is "Hits different," and you're like, you're just trying to convince yourself.
Did they change the recipe, or did they just change the packaging?
They changed the recipe, but they got rid of Sierra Mist at the same time of launching Starry to be a replacement, which is just more sugary. That's all. So like when they're like, the slogan is "Hits different," you're like, yeah, no, nice track. It's the same
It's
thing.
kind of like, this isn't Sprite.
Yeah.
One time a friend made me... One time my friend made me a Shirley Temple, but instead of using Sprite, they used Mountain Dew, and it was so gross.
I've had that. It's pretty good. Anyways, the truth, biblically speaking, the truth is what?
Jesus.
It is a person. He is the way, the truth, and the life, right? We've also talked about wisdom, right? So when people are talking about knowledge, we're usually saying like knowledge is...
Jesus again!
Right. A lot of people are thinking of knowledge as like the correct thing that I can factually demonstrate here, there, or the other place. But from a biblical perspective, like true knowledge is defined as wisdom, which again is a person. Is a person, yeah. So with that being said, I want to hone in on truth because here's a dynamic I run into with a lot of people. If you want to get free, you got to break free of the lies, right? Yes. But when you are trying to convince someone of what the truth is, which is what Jesus says about you, the demons are going to be prepared with a list of reasons as to why factually and knowledgeably Jesus is wrong. So let's say, and we probably used this illustration in the past, let's say that somebody says, my father hates me, and we need to break you free of the lie that you are hated. The demon is going to reinforce a possible actual truth that their father did hate them. And they might have all the evidence into the world. Like, we always want to be like, no, your father didn't hate you. But there are going to be some people who actually did experience a father who hated them.
Yeah.
What do we do in those kinds of moments? Because they're going to come and say, no, this is actually factually truthful, and you're asking me to let go of this and call it a lie. And instead embrace Jesus, who is telling me that I am loved. Mm-hmm. What do you do in those kinds of moments?
You replace what if my father hates me with, even if he hates me, I have a father who loves me. Mm.
And at the same time, you still have to deal with the fact that the demon is telling you something that happened. So, like, what do I do? You're telling me I'm loved. I have proof that is factually incorrect. So what is Jesus going up against in that moment? You know, like, Jesus is trying to tell you, no, you are loved. The replacement, like, yeah, we know you have to do that, but how am I still supposed to get over the fact that that's not accurate in a spot in my life that was super important? Like, that becomes really complicated for people, you know? Mm. So you run into these moments where you're trying to get them to believe the truth, but the demon's presenting evidence that is not the truth. And the demon is not incorrect about the evidence that it's sharing. Mm-hmm. But when Jesus comes along, he's going to say that that's a lie. So it feels like this, like, you know, brash difference between I'm supposed to believe the truth, which is different from evidence, right? Like, this is just truth and education and knowledge and evidence and facts. Like, it all gets, like, mingled up into this confusing area for a lot of people. It's so confusing. I'm not sure I'm even tracking with myself anymore as I'm trying to explain it. Is it making any sense? My analogy is falling apart here.
I think so.
Yes. I mean, I think that the main thing there is that if the information is coming from a demon, even if it seems like they are factual in one instance, the demon is going to be trying to cause you to infer so many things about, like, every area of your life based on one thing, mm-hmm. right? So, like, if we use that example, like, oh, my father hated me, and that is super damaging and super dark, and maybe in that instance, that is one piece of evidence. And now the conclusion that the demon is going to have you draw from that one thing is, I am hated, end of sentence, like, across the board. Like, it's going to get blown into something that is not just one piece of evidence from an experience. It's going to be turned into an identity, which is not beneficial and is not good. And so, I mean, I know that you've said things very similar to this in the past, but, like, never when interacting with demons did Jesus ever be like, oh, you know what? They've got a point about that one thing. Like, generally, like, yeah, I love you, but man, they sure had a good point there about your father. If a demon is saying it, it is not for you. It's not for your benefit. And Jesus is going to be saying the opposite. And Jesus is going to be giving you something that is true and something that is more than one experience that you've lived. It's something that is true about you, like, fundamentally throughout time and space and all creation and all history, because it's the way that God designed you and it's the life that God designed for you. Was that any clarification, or did that make it more difficult to understand?
Right on track on where I'm headed.
Oh.
So.
Beat you to the punch.
It's all right. It's all right. Tasha, anything for continue?
I have an example that might be lengthy.
Go for it.
Lengthy example.
And it's still in the works, so be praying for me. We are working on my identity is one of the things that we are still working on. And one of the truths that I bump up against is, in society, beautiful is thin, and I am not. That's a truth. Like, it's just a truth. And, you know, I've said that, and Jamin said, well, but God, but, you know, all these things, but it's still in my head, and I still struggle against it. And I'm a scroller on Facebook, and I get in those little short clips.
Really quick, just to clarify, there's a societal norm truth. It is not a
Yes.
human or Jamin approved truth.
Yes.
I do not
True.
think this.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, just making
doesn't.
sure before we continue.
Jamin making sure he doesn't get canceled.
Well, no, because I don't believe that.
No.
I don't believe
And
it's
he's-
true for me or
Yeah.
for Jesus or for any of that. So this
But
is
the societals
Yes.
in
The societal lie.
America,
Yeah,
in
okay.
America in the 21st century. This is the
And
stigmatization.
we've been working on it for a while, and I'm a scroller on Facebook, and so the little videos pop up, and I'm like, oh, that's cute, oh, that's cute, oh, look, a cat, and then this song came on, and it's The Truth. I forget who sings it, but it says, the truth is I am my father's child. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. That's an amazing song. Okay, next, And then like 3 videos later, again, it pops on and I'm like, what in the world? That's weird, but cool. I like it. Okay, next. And so I go and like 3 later, it comes on again. And I'm like, at this time, I just start praying through the song, and I'm like, God, it's beautiful. It was a beautiful moment, and it was God's truth in that moment. And the next time it happened, I was immediately drawn into a dreamscape of me walking beside God, who appeared as Aslan in my dreamscape, and just his approval of me as his child and me taking my place as his child. And this continued for quite a while. And it was just that reaffirmation of God's truth over and over and over and over again, because the lies in my head would just come over and over and over again. And I think God used Facebook to promote his truth over my life. And yeah, it was beautiful. And yeah, so.
Yeah. And those are that's like the whole thing, is that truth, again, is defined as a person. So like there are people who probably hate me, especially right now in political season. And I can ground myself in people's hate of me, which is likely true and does exist and is factually correct. Or I can choose to ground myself in Jesus. And when I ground myself in Jesus, he will look at that other evidence out there and then tell me, those are lies. Those are lies. I am truth. And I'll be like, well, Jesus, but it exists. The hate is real. And he'll be like, but that's a lie, because I'm the truth. So in those moments, I start to realize it's people who are living in untruth, right? They're living in lies. Now, they may actually hate me, but it's because they're not grounded in Jesus. Because if you ground yourself in Jesus, you love God, you love your neighbor, you love your enemies. So if someone else out there is teaching me a different fact, it is because they are also not true. And that redefines what's around me. So like the person whose dad hated them. My dad hated me, factually correct. They did all these horrible things to me. They told me how much they hated me every day. That is truth, Jamin. No, your dad is a liar. Your dad is living into lies. Your dad is practicing the demonic through his hate. So when you have experienced your dad, you have experienced a way in which the cosmos was not designed to run. You have experienced your dad in a dimension that he was not made to be like. You have experienced his power in a way in which it's been turned against how God designed it to work. And so you have been lied to. Your dad was the liar. Whether he felt it or not, he participated in the world of untruth and of lies. Whereas if you participate in the truth of Jesus as a person, none of that exists, because it's a realm that God did not design, and he is the creator. It is something that something else designed for you to live in. And so that becomes like this whole like pivotal moment of if it doesn't match Jesus, even if it's experience, it's still a lie. because it does not match the center point of all creation, the Creator himself. So is that a philosophical kind of, because when Jesus comes across demons in the Bible, he does not give them any space to, like, as Amity said, oh, they've got a point there. He point blank just says they're liars. They only deceive, and there is no truth found in them. They are murderers since the beginning. These are Jesus' words. There is no truth found in them. So when someone says, well, but they're actually correct, it's like, no, they are only wrong. Well, but they're twisting the truth. No, because once you twist truth, it is no longer truth. Like, it's not 90% truth. It's just not truth anymore. If ice turns into water, it is no longer ice. Stop telling yourself that it is. Like, well, but it's 90% ice. No, it's just not ice anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I want to go back and clarify that when we say that that these are lies and that these are not truth, we don't say that to, like, belittle experience at all. Just because something is not true does not mean that it is not impactful and that it isn't very real to experience. So in the example of someone who is hated by a family member, to say, like, well, your father is living into lies and is not living into the truth of Jesus, so don't worry about it, girl. Like, no, that's crazy. That's so insensitive, and that's also not the way that Jesus treated people who were hurting and in dangerous situations, and we're dealing with very, very real, impactful effects of things that are not true and the effects of other people not living into truth. So I didn't want that to come across as, like, any, like, dismissal of the things that people go through, because so many experiences that we have in the world are based in untruth. Like, those things are still real and those things still hurt, and there still needs to be active works of healing and reconciliation in some cases, and, like, redeeming of those situations, because they are real but they're not true.
Yeah, no one's trying to gaslight you that it didn't happen or that it didn't hurt. Most of the time in inner healing, there's plenty of times where I'm crying more than the person who has experienced it, because I'm experiencing it afresh with them, and I can't believe what they've faced. So by all means, we're not trying to diminish what happened, but the demons aren't going to come out until we change our minds about what reality is. And so if we ground ourselves in actualities of how people have treated us, because we believe that this is true because it did happen, we're not going to get free. So we have to acknowledge it happened. We have to go through the inner healing that it happened. And then eventually we have to say, I've been lied to as to my identity through these actual things. And that truth of who I am is somewhere else. And I need to reach for that, or I'm not getting out of here.
Do you want to talk a little bit about, like, what practically, because I fear that a lot of this has come across to me as kind of, like, abstract, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, of course, we don't want to listen. Like, who wants to listen to the lies of demons? Nobody's lining up in that queue being like, whoa, let's go. But how do you switch your mindset from being like, oh, what is true is the things I've experienced? Like, how do you practically, like, get rid of that? What does it look like to live into the fact that truth is a person? That's such a, like, abstract thing to say. How tangibly does this change your mindset? How tangibly does this change your life?
Yeah. I've got one person who's been working through the lies that they've been told, which have all revolved around self-worth, like that they just don't have any value. And so they were feeling convicted about it. A lot of times it's easy for them to just fall in the rut, like, yep, that's probably true. And if anyone says anything nice to them, they'll say, like, they're just being nice to me. They just feel like they have to be, kind of thing. So, like, even the truth can't break through because everything has been framed as lies. But one day the Holy Spirit just really nudged them and said, you need to write down every nice thing that happens to you and make a list and keep it going. And that's going to be one of the small ways in which we're going to start replacing this. And so they just started, like, every time something nice happened, anytime someone said a compliment, rather than just diminish it and say, like, those are all lies, they had to write it down, which, like, I think there were times where they went to write it down and wrote the exact opposite, as though, like, the demons were trying to break through, like, no, it can't be, you know. So, like, they had to just keep fighting to work through their perspective of their value, to shut down those things and keep writing it down. So they found in the struggle of fighting for themselves that it was weakening those demonic lies, but it was also like it was forcing them to realize, like, look at this long list of people just saying nice things about me all the time. Is everyone lying every day, all the time, in all places, or have I been hoodwinked, you know? So, like, that becomes then an actual practical way in which they have to kind of fight back. And I think, I don't know, do you guys, Tasha already shared a story where she found lies in her own life. I'm trying to think of spaces where I've had to redefine who I am. Which might be on, like, issues of pride. When I was younger, there was a fair amount of pride I had to work through that then was, like, shouted at me as though it was even bigger than I realized, which then messed me up because I found my identity in Jamin, you're a prideful jerk. And then I had no pride because I did the whole Christian thing from there on out. So anytime someone complimented me, like, oh, you're just so good at guitar, Jamin, we love having you up there. No, it's the Lord, as though Jesus had a 7th grade level on guitar, you know. But, like, then I couldn't receive any compliments ever. It was just always about Jesus. Like, if you found anything good in me, it's not out of any worth in myself. It's got to be God, you know? Which is not a biblical perspective of your personal identity either. He has made you for a reason. You exist for a reason. He likes that you exist, and he takes pride in you, so you can have some level of pride in yourself without becoming a prideful jerk, you know. But then in more recent times, there have been moments where I felt like people have been pointing a finger at me and be like, oh, you're just so prideful, you don't listen to anyone, and all these politics, you just think you're just the best, and blah 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 blah. And, like, I have to find a space where I can say, I've wrestled with pride before, and I remember I learned a lot from that journey, and I don't feel like I'm in that space. So out of my humility, I'm going to keep just leaving it open to God. God, if you need to convict me on this, go ahead. I want to be in line with you. But at the same time, I know what my life is like when I ground myself in the identity you are trying to place on me right now. And if I do that again, I'm going to damage myself. So I need to find this level-headed space of humility and pride mixed together. Because humility is not the absence of pride. It's just the way in which you exercise your self-worth. So there might be an example from my own life. If I listen to those people just telling me that that's all I am, I will get shut down all over again. I have to learn what Jesus has already taught me. Yeah. I don't think I answered your question, but those were just some more ways in which people have tried to live in the midst of the lies and the truth at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I like the idea of the truth over and over and over again. Like the song Keep On Coming Up. And, you know, writing down everything that someone said good about you. I like that idea. And I think I've said it before, but, you know, if you are struggling with a lie, find Bible verses about it. You know, write it down, leave it in your car, leave it where you sit, leave it on your bathroom mirror, you know, and just because the lies are so prevalent because they're in your head. They're with you all the time. and it comes over and over and over and over again. And you need to see the truth, hear the truth, and experience the truth over and over and over again. It's not just you hear the truth, yup, that's what I should be thinking. It's you hear the truth and it needs to become your identity. And that takes sometimes more than just hearing it once.
Yeah, you should take, one of the ways the Spirit likes to speak is by reminding you of things he's already said. So when you have, this happens to me often, I'll be driving a car and then suddenly I'll have some doubts wash over me where I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do with this. And I need to be able to pray about my doubts, but I'll get lost in them if I give them too much energy, What you focus on increases in strength. So I'll start getting into that, and then suddenly I'll have reminders of prophetic words I've been given from the past that then break through into my mind suddenly. And for me, I used to just be like, oh, well, there's me trying to assure myself. And then over time, I've learned, like, no, the Holy Spirit's saying, like, you remember what I told you? You remember what I told you? Like, it'll be specific phrases that will pop up, old words that I had forgotten about, things that, like, I have no reason at that point to, like, resurrect. But they'll show up in those moments as like look, you're listening to all the doubts right now, Jamin. You know what the fruit of that is? What about the truths I've already told you? You want to hone in on those a little bit and see where those lead? And I've learned sometimes that when I get stuck in just the doubts, I get attacked real hard. Sometimes it's a dream, or sometimes just enter into a depression of sorts. But if I listen to those reminders that are peeking through in those moments, I can shut down all that other baggage and say, okay, the truth. I understand we all deal with doubt, but the truth, that's where I need to land.
Yes.
So
I think sometimes I need to get tricked into living into truth. I realized that I was living into a lot of lies like 2 weeks ago because I don't think I told either of you this. It's live story time on the podcast. Well, when I was younger, I was very invested in the idea of doing ministry, and I was like very passionate about ministry.
Lies, all of them.
A couple people
Shane
told me
Bradley
that.
against ministry.
They were lies. They were living in untruth. Go on.
And I was raised in a very Christian home. It was very nurturing in the direction of Christ. So I'm endlessly thankful for that. But it was every time I had a lot of confirmation of many people in my life from a very young age being like, we see this kind of passion in you, we see this skill set in you, we see this gifting in you, like, yes, you should go do ministry. And so I was like, woo, I want to go do ministry. And then I started doing it in a formal setting and for a wonderful church. And just because of like situational stuff, I got very burnt out very quickly because I was like doing this kind of full-time ministry, and I was also doing full-time college, and I was also doing 2 jobs on top of it to, pay for the college and all of these different things. And just through a lot of like situational, the way that it worked out stuff, I got extremely burnt out, and I felt like, so I made an attempt to ministry and that failed. And then that became the truth that I lived into for years and years and years and years. And every single time I thought about all of the affirmation towards ministry that I had experienced in the past, it was all like, we just were in the present. Well, let me get there. Everything that I had experienced in the past that was like, yes, we're pushing you towards ministry. In my head, I was like, well, we were in a Christian community. They told everyone to go into ministry. Like, they didn't actually feel that way. That's just a thing you say when you see someone with general leadership skills. So I dismissed it. I dismissed truth for untruth. In the present, the more people would be like, no, we really like see this in you. Like, you should foster this. Like, we want to foster this. It was so easy to write off because it was like, well, they don't know how bad it went the first time. And so there was this like one blip in time that of not living into truth. and all of these thoughts of like, well, because I'm this type of person and because these things are true, then I can't do ministry ever. And it wasn't until very recently someone pointed out to me, they were like, you do ministry all the time. And I was like, no, I don't. I can't. Like, I can't. Well, yeah, they were like, hey, don't you have the podcast teaching people about a aspect of Christianity and spirituality that is criminally, like, under-discussed in the church? Like, isn't that a huge mission field? And
this sounds like Anna was talking to you. The fact that you used the word criminally under-discussed, I don't know. I was like... Is it Anna?
Maybe. I don't know.
Hi, Anna. Thanks for pointing that out.
Well, yeah. So they were talking about like you're on the worship team every single Sunday. You're writing albums of worship music. You're volunteering with children. You're in these communities of pastors that meet. I'm literally in a group in Jackson that is for pastors who do pastoral ministry to all work together and help each other out with their pastor ministry stuff. And I had to sit back and be like, wait a minute. Have I been accidentally like living into truth with all of just like thinking in my head that this was all lies? And so God is very great. I'm stubborn. If you haven't picked up on that, I'm a very stubborn person. And this is not the first time that God has tricked me into things for my own good because I'm very stubborn. But sometimes, I mean, you were talking about like the ways in which truth can find you. And sometimes it's like the repetitive things that you're told. Sometimes it's remembering truths of the past. Sometimes you get tricked and you just end up doing it. And then you think about it later and you're like, whoa, that's actually kind of crazy. I don't know if that example was helpful to anyone.
No,
but
I think it was right on point.
Yes.
And kind of matched everything that we've been trying to say.
Great.
Yeah.
Probably because it's ministry related.
Yeah. We've only been trying to call you back into for some time now, but you know, it's fine.
Listen, I'm gonna work on it. Starting now.
Yeah. Well, with that, Amity's story can become your own. What are the things that life
if you
has
just
been
get
telling you?
stubborn enough to be tricked by God into doing things that are good for you.
That's the takeaway. That's the takeaway. But you do have your own story, and you have a long list of evidences as to why you believe about you what you do. And honestly, if you were to put another title on deliverance ministry, it would probably just be identity work, because that's primarily what you have to do. Like, you were created by God, and there are other things telling you what you are. If you believe in God and what he says, which is defined in the Bible as truth, you will find freedom. And if you listen to all of the other lies as to who you are, you will be tricked in a different direction into bondage. Yeah. Because those are the agreements that we really generally make in this kind of ministry. Or sorry, in this kind of deliverance work is like, we're just trying to redefine who you are in Christ. Ends up that all that stuff Paul said in the New Testament carries a lot more weight than, you know, maybe he even knew he was saying at that time. So, yeah. All right, Amity, take us out.
This has been another episode of the Exorcist Bestiary. I thought you were hyping me up, and it took me about second number 3 to realize that you were just doing
I thought you were going out the same way you came in, but apparently never mind.
Woo! And I was like, cheer for me, yes!
Then they kept on going.
Woo! This is exciting and new. Yeah, everyone cheer for me while I do this. I didn't realize it was just an ambulance sounding.
No, but you take it how you want. We'll see you all later.
Love you, besties.
you're using Goodwill lip gloss.